Eskom and Sasol are racing against time to avert day zero or a gas cliff. That is a situation in which South Africa runs out of gas. They have signed a memorandum of understanding to collaborate in searching for new natural gas sources. For more on this, I'm joined by Ruse Moleshe, energy analyst. Ruse, very good afternoon to you. Thanks very much for your time. Now, we've had to have seen a multi-billion rand projects to find new sources of gas being mired in controversy, but also being opposed by environmental groups and communities. We've seen multi-billion rand projects to find new gas sources being mired in controversy, opposition from environmental groups as well as communities. You think this is going to be, isn't this going to affect what Sasol and Eskom are trying to do?
So what Sasol and Eskom are trying to do is to import gas that will be sourced all the way from Qatar and use the existing infrastructure, which is a pipeline between South Africa and Mozambique, to import that gas to South Africa. And eventually that is supposed to go into gas to power projects. In order for that project to be feasible, in my view, other users, which are the industrial users, will also need to come in order to create the economies of scale and therefore make those prices feasible. But to get back to your question, communities have been opposing what we call the gas finds that are somewhere in the Western Cape or Southwest Cape, where there's exploration that needs to happen first, and then the gas can be developed into future uses, like in the Moss gas facility that used to use them, for instance, which has run out. So they generally have been opposing environmental impact assessment studies and all of that. So, and that is creating a problem for South Africa, excuse me, in my view, because that gas is domestic gas that would be relatively cheaper than importing gas elsewhere. But that's a discussion, I guess, for another day.
Now, all of this, of course, is to avert day zero or gas cliff. To the uninitiated, what does day zero mean?
Okay, so we've been importing most of our gas from Mozambique through Sasol and a Mozambique entity. And most of that gas has been going through to Sasol, feeding in their petrochemical plant. But over and above that, there's gas infrastructure in South Africa, and that gas has been going to commercial users, like gas users, like steel manufacturers, a whole lot of different, industrial users. But now these industrial users are facing a drying up of gas because that gas was imported from Mozambique fields, which are running out in 2027. Without that, then that means all of those industries, forget about it, Sasol for a while, all of those industries will not be having gas to operate. And these industries have been supporting the South African economy, supporting employees and a critical input to the economy. So that is why now, Sasol is looking at bringing in gas. Sasol really is going to play a role of a supplier or an aggregator. And I think for this to be feasible, they see that if they add Eskom, which is also requiring gas for gas to electricity, sorry, I don't know what's going on, that may then give them economies of scale and therefore become feasible.
Now, Eskom and Sasol have signed this memorandum of understanding, but there are no deadlines or timelines attached to it, which may suggest that the matter is not being treated with the urgency it deserves, given the 2027 that you mentioned, by which time we will have run out. I don't know what to read into that.
Yeah, for me, it seems to me still a memorandum of understanding. Firstly, in terms of its standing, I'm not a legal person. It's an agreement. It's just an agreement. So the devil is in the detail in terms of how that will be commercialized. And in my view, I know that the minister said that they speak to industrial users. In order for this to be feasible, those industrial users need to be part of the package that is going on. Maybe Sasol plans to accelerate that process going forward, but it is concerning that they have not really had a decent discussion with those users as well to make this feasible. Having said that, and the gas industrial users have said that in the next 9 months at least, they would require to have that gas. So we hope that the beyond the media posturing, there are indications or discussions that will be going on to make sure that this is feasible. Especially will be important for the industrial users because of their strengths of the balance sheets that they have that will bring to the table, given Eskom's challenges from a balance sheet perspective, Eskom's challenges from a balance sheet perspective. So I agree with you. This is just hello, we have this in plan, but there needs to be a lot more work, a lot more detail that's worked out to make this feasible.
Now, for the long term, the Minister Ramokgopa says government has ambitions of building its gas infrastructure in Richards Bay.
Yeah, so there's many initiatives that they are looking at Richards Bay, and we have been, some of the gas exploration and production companies that were in Mossel Bay are leaving. And so I think we need to really sit down as South Africa and really craft out a proper strategy that involves implementation, investments, and everything that is quite clear in terms of where we are going instead of the stop and goes. In my view, we still need to figure this out properly.
I mean, by the minister's own admission, South Africa won't be ready to build and run its own natural resources before that gas cliff, which he says usually takes about 10 years.
So yes, South Africa will still have to build infrastructure to enable things to happen. But this memorandum is sort of a shortcut that can be that leverages existing infrastructure, like the gas pipeline that comes from Mozambique that has already been used to get the gas from Mozambique gas fields all the way to South Africa. So the reason why it's at least looking a little more feasible, it's for that. But remember that that's only going to address the issues that relate to Eskom and these industrial users. Other gas requirements for the economy would have to be looked at from a different perspective. For instance, Sasol themselves will not be benefiting from this because they will not be using this gas for their own facility, which requires the gas that will be running out. So a lot more different strategies need to come into place. This one is an emergency intervention that will come in to try and get the gas quickly for Eskom as well as potentially those industrial users. But there's still a lot more room for a lot more detailed strategy which looks at gas in South Africa use in general.